Hello, and welcome to Cornwall Woman, the podcast about cool women and their love affair with Cornwall. It's a beautiful September day, and I'm trying to hang on to summer by spending as much time as I can outdoors. For me, being a Cornwall woman is as much a state of mind as being born on the right side of the Tamar. In this episode, I'm talking to skateboarding coach and artist Cora, who's inspired countless women and girls and boys to get into skateboarding. She was brought up in Ireland and Bradford and moved to Cornwall in 2009 to study, and she never left.
Cornwall specifically for me is great because it feels like you're more likely down here to meet people with similar kind of approaches to life. People want to be at the beach, or they want to be surfing and spending time with each other and eating, just because, I mean, you'd be silly not to. It's so beautiful down here.
I met her at Mount Hawke Skatepark, where she's done a lot of coaching, and I was lucky to see some of the amazing things she can do on a skateboard. Flying, basically. It starts off a bit noisy, but before long we move into the music room to have a proper chat. So here we are at Mount Hawke Skatepark. Is this the most popular skate park in Cornwall?
Yeah, you could say that. It's probably one of the longest indoor ones in the area. Just started off as one mini ramp, but in the far corner we have what's called a pool, so that dates back to kind of when they'd empty swimming pools and go find abandoned swimming pools and go and skate them. And then street skating only kind of developed once the ollie had been invented. So before it was more about cruising round and lots of flatland tricks, and then once the ollie was invented, then you could start ollieing up onto things, and rails and street skating kind of took off. Like, I guess the 90s was a big time for that in skateboarding.
So there's not very many people skating here today, but it is quite noisy. Should we try and find a quieter area?
Yeah, I think we better do.
Yeah, I'll follow you. Oh, this is nice.
Yeah, fancy go on the drums?
Oh, yes, please.
Right.
Oh, I would. I really would. So there's a music room here as well. Is this not a young person's idea of heaven?
I think so.
Mount
Yeah,
Hawke.
it is. It's just like a big playground, which I think is great. And sometimes in the skate parks, you can only, everybody's just skateboarding. So it's really nice to have these other spaces where people can kind of like expand a bit and intersect a little bit with their interests and stuff.
So what brought you to Cornwall?
I came to do my art degree here.
At Falmouth?
At Falmouth, yeah. I went to uni a bit older after, so I was working in Spain for a while, I think 5 years, and I just knew I needed to go back and top up my studies. And I knew a friend, a skateboarder, a fellow female skateboarder actually, who was living in Falmouth, and also it had the beach, which linked directly to my work in Spain. I spent a lot of time in the sea, so I was looking for somewhere that I could carry on living like that because I knew it made me happy. The art degree was fantastic. I learned so much, and obviously it set me up in Falmouth to a whole new life. Really, it's probably one of the few places I'd live in the UK quite happily.
And you still practicing your art now?
Yeah, I'll do some drawings and make some zines. I help with Cornwall Zine Library, and I have a desk space at the Fish Factory, which is a community art space in Penryn.
So can you help me out with a bit of the language of skateboarding? What's the difference between a skater and a skateboarder?
Nothing at all.
What do you call yourself?
Both words, yeah. I don't think there's not too much of a difference. If I have a conversation with somebody I don't know, and I'll say, oh, I'm a skater, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman, but maybe straight away the presumption is that I ice skate instead. Like that's more likely, or just it's the first thing that popped to people's heads. Yeah, maybe sometimes I say skateboarder instead of skater, but there's no hierarchy there.
What is ollieing, to the uninitiated?
Ollieing is just making the skateboard jump. It's kind of the foundation of a lot of modern tricks, all your flip tricks and all the technical stuff.
So what first got you into skateboarding as a girl?
I remember just getting a skateboard for probably a birthday present. I think it might have come from, there used to be this old programme on Channel 5 called Concrete Waves, and that must have sparked something in my imagination, and I just kind of stuck with it.
And what age were you roughly?
I think I was 15. I'm 33 now, so it's 16, 17 years ago, quite a while ago.
Yeah. So the early noughties then?
Yeah. No phones or anything. People think without a phone they can't find people, but actually sometimes you're actually more open to, your senses are open and looking for, is that person like me? Or if you see somebody, carrying a board, or actually the main thing was you'd notice people's shoes. You'd notice on the side of their shoe there's a certain type of scuff that you get from ollieing, and a lot of the time, just you probably, especially when you're younger and you're really excited, you have a quick check of people's shoes to see if they're a skateboarder, and then you can start a conversation, say hello. It could be anybody on the bus, walking through the street, whatever. Yeah, I usually find you make friends quite quickly.
Yeah, and around that time then, as a young woman, how many role models were there for you in the skateboarding world?
In terms of skateboarding, I think because there was so few of us, it was each other. I mean, when I was 15, 16, there was a handful of us scattered all over the UK.
Is that all?
Oh, yeah. There were so few of us, you did, once you spotted a female skateboarder, you had their name and their number or a contact or something like that. And we met a lot of male skateboarders as well who really took us under their wing.
And where did you go?
So when there's no skate parks, you tend to find you're very hyper aware of things like brick walls that might be curved or anything that's kind of skatable, like your whole city. You start looking at it and looking for things that you could skate. And a lot of these things now are getting knocked down. So, especially in Bradford, we had a famous one was the T&A banks outside the old newspaper. But that's all knocked down, and there's a nice shiny shopping centre in its place. I mean, it's smooth around the shopping centre. I'll give them that. You can ride around on your skateboard around there.
What did you experience in terms of territory? Did people mind?
Territory, that's a good way to put it, isn't it?
Because if you talk about somewhere like a shopping centre that's owned by somebody, some consortium, and they've built it for a specific reason, and you're having to kind of encroach upon these other spaces to do what you do.
Yeah.
Was that ever a problem?
A lot of these places are private places, they're shopping centres and things like that, and in a way I feel like they're a bit of an encroachment on our spaces, to be honest, because it's all public space, isn't it? And there's this idea of skateboarding being this like illegal activity, when actually a lot of skateboarders are the most respectful. Yeah, they'll skate something, but they tend to keep the area clean, and nobody's out there just to destroy anything for the sake of it. We're just going around and using our city like I think we should be free and able to do so. I mean, private companies as well, it's this ownership of space. Like, you can only sit and stop somewhere. Like, if you're skateboarding, you tend to sit down on the curb or a wall and hang out there, and because it takes time to do a trick or to get to know a space. And that seems like an illegal activity nowadays, unless you're sat in a shop or a restaurant or something like that. It seems more and more difficult. And that adds to this feeling of the space not being yours. But I think we should be able to sit down and spend time with each other without having to buy coffees or alcohol and things like that, I'm probably the most happy sat in a car park on a curb, just being with each other, really, rather, I mean, maybe people have quite a narrow idea of who skateboarders are, like maybe they're not women, or maybe they're not people of colour, or maybe they're not of a certain age. But I mean, just the range of people that skate, to me, always like, it's just the best thing, because I can go out and go skateboarding, and one day it will be with, a 6-year-old kid, he teaches me something, or or we've got gallery managers or owners or writers like from New York, when I'll be sat on a curb, hanging out with them. It's not just the angsty 16-year-old teenage boy, it will be like that, just like it'll be the angsty 40-year-old woman or whatever, it's surprising who you meet along the way. It's the skateboarding bit is the leveler between all of us, and I don't think that's ever a bad thing.
So when you first started, you were, as far as you were concerned, one of the few female skateboarders in the whole country with no role models. If a young woman of the same age is starting out now, what is the difference for her?
Oh, it's massive, really. I mean, the only professional skateboarder you had Alyssa Steamer on Tony Hawk's PlayStation 1. So when PlayStations first came out, one of the big games at the time was Tony Hawk's. And I know a lot of people started skateboarding because of that game. So I guess this computer figure on the game, like, who's this? And Alyssa Steamer is one of the, she's one of the veterans and a very good role model. We started this thing called Ladies Monthly as a way to kind of connect these handful of skateboarders like in the UK. Just tongue-in-cheek title. It's a good one.
I like it. Not everyone will get that.
Still makes me laugh. I guess we didn't want to take ourselves too seriously, and we did think that it was like
po-faced.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people that were just skating then, now they've started their own organisations, or they're competing, or they've got sponsors, or etc. etc. So they have the UK Skate Championships, and I think that was in Corby at the time. And with the help of some of the male skaters who were really supportive, we had the first female section of that competition. It just wasn't there at all.
That's a massive breakthrough, isn't it?
I think it was, and
the fact that you all helped to make it happen.
And we going around making sure everybody turns up, because when you're just starting out or just practicing, or when you see the professionals go and skate and then you've got to get up there, it's very daunting to feel brave enough to put yourself out there, especially when you probably don't feel good enough to be in a competition.
As in so many things, women will find that they have to be even better than a man to get parity. Is that the same in skateboarding?
Maybe a better way to put it would be, it's a bit more difficult to own the space that you're in. Places like skateparks and stuff like that, some of them feel like a very male space. You might hear things that are, some things that are just right out offensive, and other things that, might just make you like wince a little bit, or just something you'd rather not hear. But maybe that's just everywhere. It's slowly starting to break down, but that depends a lot on having certain individuals making sure that there's more diversity in the skate parks and in the magazines. And there's lots of arguments about you shouldn't have a photo or be in a magazine because you're not kick flipping 20 steps or whatever, but it's still 50% of the population, and there are female skateboarders there, so they should be there because they are there. I don't even know how to see. Sometimes it feels like these feel like silly arguments that you end up having to have again and again. And we need access to these spaces, and we shouldn't have to fight for them, or we shouldn't have to listen to inappropriate. Just have an awareness of everybody around you. I'm not going to walk into a space and start using words that are going to upset other people. And sometimes when a space has been yours for such a long time, have been male spaces for such a long time, you get a bit deaf sometimes to the things that you should be more aware of. And that's what happens, is when you've got a mixture of people there, you are more aware, because you got somebody right in front of you, or somebody hopefully is going to call you out on that stuff. Skateboarding, it has had this image of being the subculture, the radical thing, going against all the norms, and it needs to do what it says, really. You're in a time where skateboarding's everywhere. It's families coming to the skate parks, parents are skateboarding themselves with the kids. And now is definitely a time to, maintain the radical side of skateboarding, which means that we need to start representing everybody and all the radical individuals, which are so many. It's not just women, there's many other guys who probably feel marginalised coming into spaces like this. Maybe they feel the same walking into a gym. I don't want this to come across as being down on skateboarders, or especially not male skateboarders. The change that we're seeing at the moment is fantastic, and I hope it carries on. It can be hard work sometimes, so yeah.
Could you imagine yourself doing what you do now as a skateboarder and a skateboarding coach anywhere else? How does being in Cornwall make this lifestyle work for you?
You can be a skateboarder anywhere in the world. Cornwall specifically for me is great because, I don't know, you just get a bit of a break from the rat race, really. It feels like you're more likely down here to meet people with similar kind of approaches to life. they don't have to be skateboarders, but because we're surrounded by such beautiful places, people want to be at the beach, or they want to be surfing, or and spending time with each other and eating, just because, I mean, you'd be silly not to. It's so beautiful down here, and
it's more of an outdoor space.
It is,
in general,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah.
And do you have a favourite place in Cornwall?
I feel like I have so many. There's days when I go snorkeling or something like that. Well, let's say that Castle Beach in Falmouth, for example, like really near, just a quick walk away. And on a nice warm day, I can be snorkeling with fishes and crabs and seaweed, and I can pick some for my dinner. And people pay for that, don't they? They wait a whole year to go on holiday and to spend that time with their friends and family, and we get to see dolphins occasionally and whales and go. I just think it's fantastic, and it's pretty anti-capitalist way to live as well.
And you still travel around doing work with different skateboarding NGOs. Tell me about some of the stuff that you've done abroad.
So 2 years ago, I went and volunteered with SkatePal. The charity works to build a sustainable skate scene in Palestine. So what they've gone and done is built the skate parks there bit by bit.
Was there a skateboarding scene there already?
No, not at all. Charlie, who founded the NGO, was teaching English out there, and he just so happened to be a skateboarder. He brought his skateboard with him because that's what skateboarders do. It doesn't matter if you're going to teach English, you'll be like, there'll be, I'll meet some other skateboarders. And he had his skateboard out in the streets, and the kids were just like amazed. They'd never seen it before, because obviously you're isolated. Your access to just visual information about skateboarding, never mind factories to build the skateboard decks and wheels. I mean, when you're under occupation, any country under occupation, leisure and things like that go to the wayside. In Palestine, you have a very young population with nothing to do. It connects the young people there with a whole global community. If you go and type in SkatePal on Instagram or whatever you like to use, there's just so many great pictures and videos. Look at some of the pictures and you'll see exactly why. So many smiles and so many talented individuals.
So was there any difference in the approach between the boys and the girls too?
No, one of the objectives of SkatePal is that there's 50-50 participation. I think it's really high. They've managed about 55%, which is just crazy. Really, I think because over there skateboarding hasn't been as well known, it's a bit of an anomaly. So sometimes the young girls aren't allowed to do certain activities that the boys are allowed to do, because skateboarding kind of comes into this kind of middle ground of what it is, and it's very new over there. It's kind of created this default space where there's less of those kind of structures imposed. Just this space, this safe space that doesn't...
More neutral.
Yeah, just a neutral ground. The girls and boys are at very similar levels. I met some great young women there who were just real role models, and all beyond their years as well. So that really brings me a lot of joy when I see them. Like, you do all these things you're not meant to do. You fall over. You kind of walk around and go exploring. Maybe all these things that are seen more boys' activities, and you get strength from that. And you know yourself and your area more better.
Yeah, a whole new level of confidence. And that 45-65 split. How does that compare to here?
Oh, it's better. It's way better. Yeah, definitely. I think over here we've managed to get lots of high participation, but some of that has had to happen through, women only sessions.
You've run women only sessions here at Mount Hawk.
Yeah, they happen last Friday of every month at Mount Hawk. I mean, in Corona times, I'm not too sure if that still stands.
And this year it would have been the Tokyo Olympics, which would have included skateboarding as an event for the first time.
Yeah, for the first time, yeah. Yeah, Sky Brown and a couple of other people, Sid Halford. Palestine even had an entry. There has to be female applicants, and somehow skateboarding's made it possible.
That's extraordinary, actually. Within a couple of years,
exactly.
that they can be entering themselves in at Olympic level.
Yeah.
So you've taught loads of girls and women here, and boys and men.
Yeah.
What's your advice to a young woman who's thinking of starting out but still feels she, needs a bit of encouragement? How would you encourage somebody to go for it?
Falling over is probably the first barrier for a lot of people. We don't fall over in front of people very often, so you have to fall over to achieve anything in skateboarding. There's no avoiding it. I think people should fall over more often. It's good for you. Embarrass ourselves every now and again. Yeah. So I would say, skateboarding doesn't have to be jumping down loads of steps or hurting yourself. Just get yourself a skateboard and go out and do it on your own terms, Don't hurt yourself if you don't have to. Don't feel pressured to be as good as the boys yet or anything like that. Just if you get one or two other friends who are willing to do it with you, you're set, really, because, it's such a social element as well as the physically skateboarding, and you can use it however way you want. Say you just want to go to the shops, that's skateboarding, you're a skateboarder. I would just say that feeling, that voice that tells you not to go and do it, just make it be quiet. Even if it's just one day, say you go out once a week, just grab your skateboard, and if you see anybody out there with a skateboard, go and say hello. There's no such thing as a proper skateboarder. And as women and young girls specifically, skateboarding is for you as well. It really is. And anywhere where you can skateboard, that space is for you as well.
Cora Stocker, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to be able to talk about these things.
I loved spending time with Cora and listening to her quiet wisdom. Such a great role model. There are plenty more episodes of Cornwall Woman to listen to, each one with their own gleaming pearls of wisdom. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or share Cornwall Woman with a like-minded friend. You can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Cornwall Woman, or at Cornwall Woman Pod on Facebook. These podcasts have been made with the help of a Cultivator Creative Investment Grant, funded by the European Regional Development Fund, Arts Council England, and Cornwall Council. The theme music is by Cornwall composer House of Hiss. Thank you for listening.